Hello and welcome once again to College Success Skills with me, Mr. Fowler. I hope everyone had a pleasant Thanksgiving over the break. I'm so happy that you checked in with me today, though, because we are quickly drawing down to a conclusion in the course. I will probably have one additional video beyond today's session, number 30, on Wednesday that I will post either Wednesday night if possible or Thursday morning at the latest. So without further ado, let's get into today's discussion. Share this with you. Okay, I should be up here. You should see me in the upper right hand corner. And today we're going to go ahead and talk about a few things for this session. First of all, we'll begin as we typically do with a preview and review of today's content. Specifically, I want to take one last look at the question of should technology replace teachers from last week. This was a non-required Zoom session that I hosted with a couple of students. So those links are posted and available now. So you should be able to go ahead and access that at your leisure. But I want to touch on some of the key ideas presented in that TEDx talk and discuss some of the implications for what was proposed in that discussion by Zhao. Then I want to take some time to just run down the remaining tasks for this semester. Almost everything is finished and in hand, but there are just a few minor things that need to be addressed before we're ready to move on to finals week. The chief amongst these tasks is the reflection essay, which is due on or before December 3rd by 11:59 or midnight. The other task is quiz 7, which is new and has been opened up and is visible as of this recording. So make sure that you attend to quiz number 7. It's the final quiz for our text, College Success Skills by Nist Ojilnik and Holsuch. And that covers chapter 15, using technology. So make sure that you have some time to attend to that. Okay, so this text has been pretty interesting. I've taught this class a number of times in a number of different colleges, but they all kind of contain the same or similar content as this example illustrates. I'm not sure it was my favorite version of this text that I've ever encountered before, but it was the one selected by the college. So any feedback on that text that you want to give me, whether it's positive or negative, is welcome. This is maybe something to think about for our next session. I'm planning on going not live with that one because I have an appointment that might conflict with it. However, if that is something you're interested in, don't feel reticent about emailing me. I'll try to see if I can manage that at a different time or schedule that for something that's a little bit more applicable to your schedules. My gut reaction, though, is that you probably have plenty of other work to attend to with your given college courses. So we'll probably table that in lieu of a video discussion or reflection period, similar to the other sessions that we've had this semester. Okay, on to today's topic. I am going to lose the video here so that things are a bit more streamlined. All right, hopefully you're still here with me. So we're going to progress into session 30, which I'm calling wrapping up. I don't know how much else we'll talk about during this semester, but we have a session today, Monday, and a session scheduled for Wednesday. So I'll try to make myself at least available to you if you have other questions, even if I don't have enough content sufficient to launch an entire final session. And I think you'll find that whether it's during COVID-19 or a more traditional semester, the last day of college courses are usually a bit shorter and reserved for mopping some minor details or addressing some chief concerns, things like that. And that's kind of what today is really all about as well. So the TEDx talk that we discussed last week was by William Zhao. Again, just a minor review. He is a Canadian internet entrepreneur and was named as one of the 30 under 30 in Forbes magazine in 2018. He's also the founder of Chalk.com, which is a K-12 educational site that bolsters and adds student support to a traditional curriculum. So he has a lot invested in this concept of technology and its role in education. And he asks a question in this talk about whether or not technology should ultimately replace teachers. His focal points throughout the discussion tended to be on the issues related to how poverty impacts education and how access to materials online can have an influence on the degree of opportunity of particular student experiences based on their geographic location, age, and their socioeconomic income level. So as Zhao's focus tends to be on education in the digital age, a couple of key questions that I wanted to discuss was this issue that he brings up about the assessment of the educational process in America today. And he does not have a very, I was going to say he doesn't have a very positive view, but perhaps it'd be more accurate to say he's a little bit glib about the level of engagement that he feels transpires in American classrooms today. I have found from the interactions I've had with your fellow students that a lot of times, especially here in Kish, there are some really good area schools that are surrounding our immediate area and from which we pool a lot of our students. And I feel that based on the feedback I've been given, many of Zhao's broad strokes, if you will, about the American education system don't always run true to form or true to the experience. I know they certainly don't run true to my experience. I felt that I received a very good education, which continued on into college. And my high school experience in particular did a very good job of preparing me for college. But I think he is thinking about larger scale, more urban school systems that may face additional difficulties in delivering content to students because of the very issues he addresses. Access to educational tools and service, and good reliable internet connectivity. These are all concerns that have cropped up in light of the pandemic and have really shown a distinction between how American children are trained and how they represent the larger disparities in American culture. This idea that it's detached, there's a detached sense of, which my spell check here would not recognize, so it needed to be turned detached. Sorry about the misspelling. But there is a sense of detachment that Zhao says is a result of America's traditional educational structure as being modeled closely on the structure of American industry, specifically American industrial manufacturing that was prevalent in the 1920s. So when much of the American school day and the formulae for what a lot of us know as a traditional education was laid out, it was based on a schedule of rigor that was similar to the workday of a manufacturing plant. Because at that time in American history, 70 to 80%, maybe almost 90% of Americans, I think 70 is more accurate, but 70% of Americans probably worked in some type of standardized factory, either as in a supervisory capacity or as a direct worker. The other 20% were probably upper echelon management or artist class workers who, completed public work projects or were private authors, artists, filmmakers, so on and so forth. So one of the questions I had posed to students was whether or not that surprised them. And interestingly, a lot of them had already known about this phenomenon. And I found that Zhao's take on this was a little bit simplistic. Ultimately, though, if you're going to ask the question, should teachers be replaced by technology? Zhao says, no, because they'd already tried that to some degree or another. He cites the example of the man who went on to basically become the multiple choice machine. And that didn't necessarily facilitate student learning or enhance the overall conditions of education. So that technology can be a helper, it can be a guide in many instances, but that ultimately, he says, you need the personal or human connection with your instructor in order to explain how some of these technologies are being used in an effective way. All right, so that's just a little bit of review from last week. Now, time to move on to the fun stuff, the nitty gritty. And I'm calling this section the semester checklist, because there are a number of things that some of you still need to attend to before the close of the semester if you're going to achieve your optimal grade. First of all, the self-assessment essay, I believe, has been completed by just about everybody. If you don't know what this essay is, or if you're confused about where it should be located, you may want to go back and review some of the earlier sessions and announcements that we opened the semester with. Your self-assessment essay is just a way to pause and reflect on your overall skills and see how prepared or how unprepared you felt that you were at the beginning of this semester. We completed that and I gave you feedback, and then you modified the self-assessment essay based on the feedback provided. In addition to the self-assessment essay, we also, sorry folks. We also had a number of quizzes, and that includes the brand new quiz number 7, which covers chapter 15 of our text, using technology to enhance learning. So if you haven't done that one yet, and again, as of this posting, no one had completed that quiz yet because it was brand new. By the time you read this, you may have already completed it. So I don't want to dwell just on quiz 7, the final weekly quiz, but rather I want to point out that several of you have quizzes that are outstanding. You haven't completed them yet. So you need to attend to these quizzes. They remain open, and you can take them as many times as you need in order to get the best potential score. Because of this feature, though, I think that its Desire to Learn harbors a inability for you to select your feedback or see which questions you got wrong. I just found out about that. Pretty late in the semester, I know, but at least it's an answer. So if you have a limited number of opportunities, say 2 or more, between 2 and 10 opportunities, you can see what questions you got wrong and correct them. However, since I select unlimited potential for my students, I guess there's some kind of catch-all where you don't get to see or which ones you got wrong. So that's unfortunate, but I feel like it's the most fair version to offer as well. So my overall point with quizzes is that if you have done your quizzes, you should be in perfect shape to complete your complete your reflection essay. And if you already completed your reflection essay, don't worry about it. I don't think one quiz is going to modify your quiz score that much so that you don't have to change your reflection essay. Don't worry about that. But like I said, my chief concern is that there are several quizzes that have still not been taken. And there are several quizzes that could be improved upon, I think, given in this last week of prep time. Now, third, we have weekly discussion questions. These are weekly questions. I asked 10 of them throughout the semester. The goal was just to address a question or concern related to our text and respond to some of the questions, and then respond to 2 other fellow students' questions, and just be double check and be diligent about checking to see whether I asked you a specific follow-up question. Mostly I did not, but every once in a while I got in there, and to my glee, many of you found out when I asked you a follow-up question and you responded, which I thought was excellent. However, not everybody responded to every weekly discussion thread. So there is a mixed bag here. You can still get up to 5 points of the 10 required points, or the 10 available points, I should say, for each weekly discussion question. You don't really have the time, and I don't know that I feel it's right to pressure your fellow students to respond to late posts. So I can still give you at least 5 points on each of those weekly discussion questions if you haven't been keeping up with them. Just go in, answer the questions, and at least you can earn those 5 points per weekly discussion question. Otherwise, that score will come down pretty dramatically. And the last but not least, of course, is the reflection essay, which you got a little preview of. But we're going to look at it here in great detail. Now, a number of students have contacted me, more than I would have expected, but apparently this is not so clear, and I feel really bad about this, but I don't know what else I could have done to have made this more clear in terms of locating information about the reflection essay. So I've laid it out everything here. It's due on or before December 3rd, which is an odd date for us. It's a Thursday by midnight. I just want to make sure that I have the adequate time to grade these papers and make sure the grades are published. Now, grades are due by 6 o'clock in the evening on December 12th, which I believe is Saturday. So I don't know how many of your other teachers are handling things. Hopefully we get them out to you way before that. But because of the unusual nature of the semester and the due dates, and I'll be honest with you, some of my fellow professors have been saying that this format, while engaging, has brought out a number of negative tendencies like procrastination, right? It's easy to just let the grade sit there and so on and so forth. I hope that's not the case. But the grades have to be posted by 6 p.m. on Saturday, which means with processing, I don't know that grades are going to be available until the 14th for you to check. I'm going to try to make sure that I'm doing my best to get them done before that or ahead of time. But try to turn your reflection essays in by at least the 3rd, which is the end of this week, Thursday of this week, so that I can make sure they're graded. And you can have one less thing to worry about as you head into the traditional finals week that we're going to host starting next Monday. The quiz itself, the essay itself is valued at 25 points, which represents about 10% of the overall grade for the course. It's set for about 300 words. You may go beyond 300 words, though, if you feel the need to express yourself fully. That's roughly equivalent to about 1.5 pages. So what's the focus of the essay? Well, the purpose of the essay, and this is directly from the essay rubric, is to reflect on the hard work you've engaged in all semester and to be more ready and able to apply the concepts and skills you've mastered. What does that look like? Remember from our text that it's always good to ask yourself, what is the task or what type of activity is Mr. Fowler assigning me? So this is a subjective analysis of how successful or unsuccessful this class was in helping you adjust to college life and manage the expectations. It's okay to be critical, but if you are critical, one of the things that I would ask you to do is not just say, oh, this class was terrible and Mr. Fowler was an awful teacher. I don't think anybody really feels that way at this point, but there's always room for me to be surprised. But that's not going to get you anywhere, not necessarily even just with this class or essay, but in life, if you haven't learned this lesson yet, when it comes to education, let me lay it out for you in the simplest of terms. Teachers and instructors don't like to assign you something and then have you just say, this is stupid or boring. Okay, there are some people in life who think everything is stupid and boring if it doesn't revolve, playing a video game on their phone or, using a filter on Snapchat or something like that. But that's not the ideal audience that these types of activities are designed for. And part of life is learning to suggest that even if you're unhappy or unsatisfied with something, there's always a positive way to address it. So if you do feel like this text needed to be improved, or if there's something I could have done to enhance your learning more, or if you felt that you would just have been successful in this course had it been more personable or more face-to-face, one of the things that you might want to write about in your reflection essay, is just that. Offer suggestions on how it can be improved. This is something like that. Hopefully you're not angry about this course, but if you're offered another subjective analysis assignment like this one for a final exam, let me just give you one last hint or suggestion, tip, trick, or way to enhance your overall learning capabilities. Address concerns, but then make sure that you're supplying potential solutions to the concerns or problems that you bring up. What is the task itself? The course reflection letter will consist of 3 main elements. Let's take the first element and focus on that. First, you're going to describe how you earned your current grade, along with some reasons why you earned that grade. And at this point, you may want to look at the gradebook portion of Desire to Learn to find the necessary information. Then, once you've accessed the information, you can briefly summarize why you earned the grades that you did. Now, another point that I'll make, and this is just Mr. Fowler's opinion now. Okay, so this is not the end-all be-all suggestion from Nistel Jelnick or Holsuch or from the college itself. This is just Mr. Fowler's interpretation. Okay. You can feel free to agree or disagree with this, but while the gradebook is available and you should be able to monitor your progress in this class and every class, a good student really has a sense of how well they're doing in a course. If you have been working diligently all semester, you should know that I'm in an A or B range and why I'm there. If you don't really know where you're at, or you feel like I shouldn't need to know that, that should all be supplied by you, the instructor. You may have a valid point. And in fact, I would actually agree that a dutiful instructor should be able to keep those grades up to date and have a sense of how students are progressing in his or her classroom. But not every instructor is built the same. And we learned about that. We read about that in our text this semester. So I would caution you to remember that, again, not all instructors are built the same. And it's partly your responsibility. In fact, I'd say it's 60 to 70% of a student's responsibility to manage their own success in any given class. All right, enough of my soapbox. Moving on. For the second paragraph, you should address some of the ideas that you brought up in your self-assessment essay. Remember that that essay charged you with questions about what challenges do you expect to face over the semester, and what are some strategies you can use to address those concerns. Now, I want you to think about what you wrote at the beginning of the semester and ask yourself, what challenges did I actually face? Were they the same as I had anticipated, or were things different? As a follow-up, were the strategies that you used to approach those challenges effective as well? Lastly, for the final paragraph, reflect on the strategies that text introduced. Were there any strategies that you were able to actually use this semester? And what, if any, of the ideas in the class were particularly interesting? I've already had a couple of early submissions, and many of those papers and essays focused on the memory chapter and how to expand your memory and the skills necessary for that part of the course. And I can see that that would be a very big help to a lot of students. So if that's something that you cued into or found interesting, heck, that might be a great topic for you to spend some time reflecting on. But I never can tell what a student's going to find interesting in this course, and it always seems to be different for each student. But I'm looking forward to reading about that part of the essay. And this one's kind of, well, I won't lie. It's a moment for you to really speak out, again, with the objective of providing a solution to problems about the book. Okay, so if you were the editor of this textbook, what information do you think you would include for college students? And by, way of thinking along the same lines, is there anything that needs to be dropped from this text? Is there anything so obvious, in other words, that it didn't really necessarily need a chapter? I don't know. I'd be interested to see your feedback about that. How will you be evaluated? Essentially, this essay, again, serves as a wrap-up and a final, okay, taking the place of a more traditional cumulative exam. I've never seen a benefit of cumulative exams, and I think that overall, this class is a little bit like a salad bar because it's mostly theory, okay? Pick what you want, leave the rest. I think that works well for the majority of students that I've who I feel benefited from taking the course. Specifically, I'm going to look at how focused you are and what details you're providing, organization, your sense of voice as a writer, the word choice, sentence structure, and grammar, that you're using, as well as the mechanics and overall spelling. So just, make sure you're minding your P's and Q's, cross your T's, dot your I's, that sort of thing. Lastly, I want to say a bit about quiz 7. It is the final quiz of the semester, and there were some timing issues related to, I think it was chapter 6, and I still haven't had a whole lot of people take quiz number 6 over chapters 12, 13, and 14. You really need to make sure that you're taking these last 2 quizzes. Ideally, this chapter would have been offered up last week. So this last week, you wouldn't have had all these other things to do. But like I said, people have other classes and they have other concerns and life issues that crop up. So this is the best job I can do. I didn't want to make it available as a final exam or a final quiz because it doesn't really contain that level of reflective thought. But it is a necessary chapter that we read, that was assigned, and we have to complete the appropriate quiz. So there are 5 multiple choice questions in this chapter, which is focusing once again on using technology to learn. There are 5 additional true-false questions and 2 short answer response questions. So I hope that you make some time or carve some time out of your schedule to effectively reflect on quiz 7. The PowerPoint for chapter 15 is posted in the announcements section, so you can use that and read through it as a primer, because it has been a while since the actual reading of chapter 15 was assigned. Hopefully that will help prepare you for the course, for the quiz that ends the course. And if you do make a mistake, remember that you can take the quiz as many times as you need until you obtain either a perfect score or a score that you're comfortable with. I just wanted to real quickly address, again, our 2 authors, Sherry Nist-Ojelnik and Jody Patrick Holsuch. I don't know if her last name is Holsuch or Holcuck or how it's pronounced. I've butchered it probably several times throughout the semester. But Sherry Nist-Ojelnik on the left side of your screen is a professor emeritus at the University of Georgia and retired after directing the Division of Academic Enhancement and actually holds the rank of professor. Jody Patrick Holsuch is an associate professor at the Department of Curriculum and Instruction at Texas State and completed her doctoral degree at the University of Georgia. And not surprisingly, the young lady on the right over here was the student of the lady on the left. That's right. Nist-Ojelnik was her major professor. So Jody, though, in her own right, is an award-winning teacher who designs courses to help students learn effective and efficient study habits. So that's just a little bit from your textbook if you bothered to read up on them. I always think it's good to address your authors, and while they offer different ideas and suggestions that I think are really good, not everything that they bring up is something I did or a practice that I know successful people engaged in. But again, I endorse the salad bar approach to these types of courses. Take the information that's valuable or good and leave the rest. In terms of final thoughts, again, some potential fodder for reaching that 300-word minimum for your revision essay. What else do you feel this course could or should offer to students? And what, if any, ways could you imagine an instructor like myself actively engaging students in an online setting? This course can be a whole lot of fun when you can talk to people face-to-face and get more direct feedback. And it's just one of those courses that I think isn't perhaps ideally suited for an online course, but you can still get a lot out of the content, and it can be an effectively used course by students if they take it seriously. Still, I would want to offer a little bit more interactivity, and that's one of my regrets about this particular semester. As the song says, I have a few regrets, but I can't dwell on them. One of them is, though, making sure that I had active learning activities for students, and I don't think it gelled as well as I wanted it to this semester. So if you want to provide some feedback on that, or you have other different or creative ideas, or maybe just an idea that you encountered in another class this semester that you would have liked to have seen duplicated here, I welcome such feedback. And lastly, was anything valuable learned here for you? I'm very aware that for many of you, you might say, well, not really, or I already knew this, or you were an engaging instructor, but I'm not sure that I needed all of this theory thrown at me here in the earlier parts of my education. That may be the case. But if there's even one idea or concept that you thought, that's interesting, or I might be able to use that, or I never thought of handling that situation in this way, I think then we actually have met our objectives in the course, because the idea is to enhance your student learning process, to aid you in taking the next step toward your educational goals. And that's a win for me. So even if you ever thought that's interesting at one point or another, or you were engaged with the concept, I feel I've had a success with you. And I hope you feel the same way. Okay, let's wrap up then. This week's a little bit odd. Monday and Tuesday, I have virtual office hours, pretty standard office hours for me. Then those are duplicated on Thursday as well. Wednesday's the key I wanted to bring to your attention. I have an interview that's vis-a-vis Zoom that's going to take up a good portion of my day. So while I'm still going to be available to you from about 9:30 until 11, there's a big chunk of my day that's dedicated to that. So I'm not going to be available until about 2:30 in the afternoon. But as a sort of balm to soothe that issue or problem, I extended my hours. So I'm going to be available until 5:30 that evening, a little bit longer than a traditional course or office hours. And of course, if there's ever an emergency, don't worry about the hours. But generally speaking, I might not get back to you the next day. If it's a real emergency, I'll try to pick up. And then Friday, well, folks, let me tell you the truth. Mr. Fowler likes to sleep in on Fridays. That's the cost that, if you pay the cost to be the boss, you get to enjoy a few things here and there. And so I don't wake up until about 9:30 on Fridays. So I start my day late. But I am available even on Friday, especially this Friday, since it's the wrap up of the semester, from 10:30 to about 4:30 in the evening. So please take advantage of those virtual office hours if you have concerns, fears, or any kind of issue. Well, that's it for me. I hope that you've enjoyed this session today. I'm debating still whether or not there is even a need for a final session on Wednesday, but I'll probably clock in with some kind of final thought or activity or idea for you to consider. And I just want to say, if that doesn't happen, it's been a real privilege to be your instructor. I think it's been a great semester for the majority of you in terms of your grades and your participation. I couldn't be much happier than that. And I really liked this class. I know that some of you have been frustrated with certain aspects of it, but I thought it was great. I really enjoyed getting to know each and every one of you, even at a distance, through our assignments, through our weekly discussions. And I hope that it's been, like I said, somewhat of a positive experience. I hope at least it's not been a negative one. Well, in any event, I want to thank you once again for your time and attention today. This is Mr. Fowler reminding you once more to think critically, stay healthy, and stay curious for knowledge. Take care, folks.